Okay guys, so today's video is going to be a little bit different than our normal videos. We're going to be doing a lot of talking today, but this is information that a lot of you guys have been inquiring about, so we thought this could be a cool video to make for those of you who are in van life, and also those of you who are just maybe curious about what Cora and I are doing when we're in our van. So today's video, we are going to be giving the 10 tips to finding urban stealth camping, or just really finding free camping wherever you're at when you have a, in a van or a car that you can basically sleep in. Cora.
Yes.
Guess what?
What?
We reached 100 subscribers.
Oh, we did it!
We made it! They did it for you, rascal!
We
made it! Woohoo! We got 100 subscribers! Yeah, rascal!
Oh, he's definitely fatter.
Cora and I have been kind of doing the van life thing now for when we got the van built. When was it?
We got it back in May of 2019.
Yeah, that's right. Because I proposed to Cora. If you haven't seen that video yet, you should see it. I'll link it right here up in a card. But
second best day ever now.
We have actual footage of the proposal, and the van was included. So that was awesome. But yeah, we've had the van completely built out since May of 2019. Mm-hmm. And from then until now, we did do a stretch of about 4 months where we lived in the van full time. So we do have some experience living in a van full time. We both had full-time jobs during that time. And we were doing it in kind of like the metropolitan areas and suburban areas outside of Portland. So, relatively big city. So for those of you guys who might be tuning into this video and I live in a big city or right outside a big city, this could be good information for you. Yes.
We also felt like we had a really kind of big learning curve on figuring out where to sleep and getting comfortable with that. So if this can help anybody make that timeline shorter, we're in for it, because it took us a while to feel comfortable just parking on the side of a road or parking where we are now, where we've been for 4 nights and we've had 0 issues, and there's been at least 3 vans here every single night. So yeah, we just want to kind of pass along some of the knowledge that we've gained in the last 1.5 years almost.
Yeah, and when we weren't living in it full time, we've been traveling in it a bunch. So when COVID kind of hit the world and both of our jobs went fully remote, we did a 6-week trip where that was kind of before we were videoing, which I regret greatly because we did some really cool stuff. But we went from Portland, and help me out here, we went from Portland to Bend, Oregon for a couple days, and then we went across Idaho to Boise, right? Then where did we go after that?
Then we did Utah, Colorado, which Telluride, Colorado is the only place we paid for a camp spot, because they have banned camper van life, because there would be 1,000 vans there because it's so awesome.
That will be one of the tips, so we'll talk about that more.
And then we went back to Utah, we did some Arizona.
Yeah, we went to
California.
Lake Powell out in Arizona, Utah, like on the border, and they have some like really awesome, it's not even stealth because you're allowed to do it and it's free, but you basically just get to like, I guess you do have to pay.
Yeah, it was like $5.
Small fee and totally worth it, but you get to just like park right on the lake. We'll put some pictures maybe, but it's really cool. And then like you said, we went all the way down to San Diego, where we did get a hotel for the night because we had just done a 3-day backpacking trip and needed like a little bit of luxury for a night, so we did do that.
A real shower.
And then we made our way up California, and then up to Oregon. So we've done trips like that. We do like 3-4 day long weekend trips all the time. Our jobs right now, Cora is still working fully remote. I'm not, but I do have some flexibility, and with everything going on, like week to week, my job has looked really different. So we pretty much like have stopped planning as much, and just when we get the opportunity, we're gonna go out in the van. So like right now we're in Bellingham, Washington we've been here since Friday, and it's Monday, and I don't know. We have a plan to maybe go somewhere else Wednesday, but we might also just like stay here for the rest of the week because we found a pretty sweet spot, which we'll show you guys.
So free.
And yeah, not paying anything for it. And we have a view of the ocean.
Bellingham Bay.
All right, so we'll get into our 10 tips now. No more about, our journey and stuff like that, but we just kind of wanted to throw that in there so you guys get a little bit of context of what Cora and I have been doing with the van and, where we've been and what we've experienced. So here are the 10 tips to finding urban stealth parking or just free camping anywhere you're at.
Okay, number one is residential parking. So a lot of times we just park in residential neighborhoods. We find an area that looks pretty quiet with a lot of cars on the street. And some tips there: don't park directly in front of a house. We try to find either like a side yard with a fence, somewhere like that to park next to, or a big break between houses. So those are kind of our two things when we're looking for residential parking.
All right, and then the second tip would be to do research ahead of time on the city that you're going into. I do this all the time when we know we're going to a new city and we've never been there before, and I try and figure out if there's any laws or regulations in place in the city that prohibit overnight sleeping in a car. Because if that's the case, even if if there's no signs that say no overnight parking, you're still not allowed to sleep in your car. And honestly, we've only come across a couple cities that have that regulation. Most have nothing that says something like that. So if you don't find anything, then most likely, unless it says no overnight parking, you are good to go.
All right, number 3 is churches and schools. So we have parked in front of a lot of like churches on the weekends or things like that, or even weekdays, and then schools on the weekends because there's nobody around, right? So we actually lived full-time in the van in Portland for 4 months, and we just rotated between a couple churches and schools in a couple different neighborhoods, and we never had any issues. So the only thing there is church is usually packed on Sundays, obviously. So Saturday nights might not be the best spot for in front of a church because then you're kind of trapped in your van in the morning. But that's number 3.
All right, number 4 would be, and Cora I really live by this, would be to not arrive somewhere when it's already dark out, especially if we've never been there before. Just because it makes it that much harder to find a spot to park. So if we're going to be arriving somewhere at night when it's dark, we generally have already been there before and know that we have a spot that works, or we are using, which I'll get into later, one of our apps that tells us spots that we know for sure will be good as well. So other than that, we always try to arrive somewhere early on in the day where we can normally walk around, not even drive around, but walk around and kind of scope out some areas that would be good for us to stay overnight.
All right. Number 5 is apartment complexes, right? So big apartment complexes, they usually have covered spots, right, that are assigned, but other than that, it's free guest parking. So there's hundreds and sometimes thousands of residents in those places. They have no idea who's visiting who. So we've parked in front of multiple apartment complexes for 1 or 2 nights because we just don't get bothered. So we've also done that when we're visiting friends, when we actually are supposed to be there, and same thing, nobody knows, so.
All right, number 6 is big hotels. So again, not something that's necessarily allowed, but again, when you're kind of in a crunch and maybe you are arriving somewhere after dark, or the plan that you had just falls through, we've done this a few times where we look for a big hotel in the area. Maybe that's like a Hilton or a Hampton Inn or a Country Inn or something like that that has a big parking lot. And if you arrive later, park, be kind of stealthy, right? You're not just leaving your doors open or your lights on without your shades up, that sort of thing. We've had no issues where we arrive, sleep, right, and then we're heading out in the morning. So that's kind of been a bit of a lifesaver a couple times for us.
All right, what are we on? 7 is Walmart. So pretty much everybody knows that you can camp overnight at Walmart. Something to know there is that the only Walmarts you can camp at is where they own the property. So some Walmarts you actually can't spend the night in the parking lot, and usually they tell you, or if you call ahead and ask, they'll obviously tell you. So even with Walmart, you have to do a little bit of prep work, but it's always a really good fallback plan, especially if you're in a pretty big city. You're probably pretty safe there.
All right, number 8 is using an app to plan ahead and find a spot, or not plan ahead and get somewhere and then use the app. So a couple of the apps that we use Our I Overlander is the first one. So when you use that app, basically it's just this massive map where you can zoom in on wherever you're going, and there's a bunch of filters that you can choose from where it's going to show you where those things are. So for example, you can look for like tent camping, or you can look for vehicle overnight camping, or you could even look for like places to fill up water or dump stations and different things like that. So we've definitely used that quite a bit to look ahead of time into a city and see, okay, how many spots, you know, on the map are around there. Another cool thing about that app is if you do click on a spot, you're like, okay, that looks like a cool location, let me check it out. There's reviews on there from people who have tried to sleep overnight there. So sometimes you'll click on a spot, but then it says, you know, maybe in 2018 it was okay to park overnight there, but then in 2019, all of a sudden there's a sign up that says no overnight parking. So you can kind of date check it, which is cool. So a lot of times, like, we'll only really bank on a place if someone has done it within the last couple months, just because we found that, you know, like, people can put up no overnight parking signs pretty regularly, so pretty quickly. So that's a cool app. And then the other app, which I haven't used quite as much, but maybe Cora has more, is called The Dirt. So it's DYRT, and pretty similar concept there to iOverlander, but just kind of another resource. A lot of it is just like user entries, right? So people might enter stuff on The Dirt that they didn't necessarily enter on iOverlander, so it's kind of good to check both when you're going somewhere.
Yeah. All right, number 9, and we live by this one pretty seriously, is never sleep somewhere without cell service. And that sometimes defeats the purpose of van life and being able to get out into the wilderness, but we've been in 1 or 2 situations that we just did not enjoy because we didn't have cell service, we didn't really feel comfortable. So now that's something that we, you know, really live by, unless we're out camping at a like designated campsite where we're, you know, somewhere where there's people around or something like that for emergency services or kind of a little bit safer. Yeah, so always have cell service.
All right, and last but not least, number 10 is to trust your gut. So this is just really a tip from Cora and I in our experiences. Being 2 females living in a van, we definitely scope out the area, or we try to ahead of time. But if we do end up parking somewhere we think maybe is okay, and then something sketchy happens when we're there, we leave, right? That's kind of the beauty of the van, is that it's mobile and we can go wherever we want. So if something feels sketchy, we don't just try and sleep it out. We definitely pick up and leave. So I hope that's helpful for you guys, just to kind of hear some of those tips if you are living van life or truck life or trailer life or whatever it might be, right? You know, I hope some of that helps you guys. It really is just kind of like a learning experience. Cora and I have found that, you know, when we first got into the van, we were kind of nervous about all this, right? And started paying for a lot of the places that we were sleeping. We would go somewhere and stay in a campground, or we would, I mean, that was like a big thing, right? Or use like sites like Hip Camp or something where you like pay to know you have a for sure spot to park. But what we found is, like, we really don't need that, and we really don't need to spend the money. The whole point of the van was to, you know, be self-contained, and we don't need to hook up anywhere. We have a 20-liter water tank in here, so like we're good for water for a long time. We can cook, we have all our food prepped, all that. So there's really no reason to need the campground for the most part. So, you know, we really just, it's all about observing and experience. And as we've done this for longer and longer, we feel pretty comfortable just like showing up to a, not like a big city, right? But like some of these smaller cities that we, like we're in Bellingham, Washington right now, showing up to some of these smaller cities and just kind of being able to explore a little bit and then, you know, find a cool place to park. Alright guys, so thank you for watching our video. If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. If anything, just to get Cora and I excited, hit the subscribe button. It'd mean a ton to us. And we're going to keep making videos. We're having a lot of fun with it. You know, these videos will be posted, you know, at least once a week. So we're excited to keep showing you guys.